worry that taking time for yourself means taking time away from your business? Today's guest, Edie DeVilbiss, will tell us about how taking time for self care will support your business rather than detract from it. Edie leverages her life experience and academic knowledge, plus years of trial and error, to bring you simple and actionable strategies to shape your life to your liking. In a world of stress, she empowers you to regain your calm confidence to step into your best self. Your life is worth your effort. Edie is a powerful speaker, teacher, and mentor. She combines her years of experience as a 911 operator, a clinical counselor, and a chaplain to create transformative workshops and programs that help people heal burnout and thrive. I am so thrilled to have you on the show today, Edie. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Carissa, and thank you for that lovely introduction. And you even pronounced my name right. That's so cool.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
Will you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do now in your work?
Well, let me go back a little bit to while I was still working as a chaplain. I got into a doctoral program, and my course of study was addressing compassion fatigue through spiritual practices. That's what I did my project on to get my doctorate in ministry. Because in 911, I ended up leaving because I got so out of kilter. When I was working as a clinical counselor, I was working in the field of addictions and I struggled again. And then as a chaplain, I struggled with a spiritual malaise, physical problems, and emotional problems because of the stress that I was under. And so this doctoral work came along and I learned so much. I worked so hard on it. I did a lot of work on habits, but also the compassion fatigue part and understanding about the mental health aspects and how important physical health is. And so I finished all this up. I had just retired by the time I finished. It's like, well, what do I do with this? I mean, who gets a doctorate in their 60s to begin with? But apparently I did. And I'm not a unicorn. There's a lot of people who do. But then I have this body of knowledge. How will I share it? And I looked around and realized that 911 really needs my help. And I know that if I'm helping 911, I can help people in other fields too, because I don't know anybody who's any more stressed than 911. There are probably some people who are as stressed. So that's what
Wow.
I'm doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you really experience this burnout and compassion fatigue in so many areas that
Mhm.
you know what that feels like from
Mhm.
counseling, from being a chaplain, from being a 911 operator, that all of those things they're all jobs that require so much care.
Mhm.
And I agree that so many people and likely many people who are listening can relate to that feeling of burnout and or compassion fatigue. But I'm wondering, Edie, if you can share with us, how do you know? Like, how do you know if you're experiencing burnout? How do you know if you're experiencing compassion fatigue?
That's really the hard part because one of the symptoms now, compassion fatigue and PTSD, the symptoms are the same cluster. The genesis is different. So, compassion fatigue is from dealing with other people's trauma. But one of the symptoms is a sense of persecution. A sense of persecution is it's somebody else's fault. They're out to get me. The world is against me. And so when we're having problems where we get stuck in that blame game of blaming other people. If only my kids would behave. If only my spouse would listen to me. If only my coworkers weren't so incompetent or whatever derogatory term we're calling them. It's really hard to recognize. And that's why one of the pieces that I teach I help people recognize that self-awareness is really, really important, because we've got to pay attention to not only who we think we are, but how we're really showing up. I thought, I mean, I wanted to be a kind, compassionate person, and I was pretty much anything but I didn't realize it until I actually thought about what was going on in my life and how difficult my relationships had gotten. And it turns out that I'm the common denominator in all my relationships. It's it's me.
Was
Duh.
there an aha that brought that into your awareness? How did you figure that out?
So it's the story that I tell when I'm doing my public speaking. So I was working in 911, and I was a shift supervisor. That means I'm responsible for this 8-hour shift. And I had gone to a staff meeting where I was the object of disdain. So one of the sergeants started scolding me because one of my dispatchers had set an office outside our jurisdiction on a burglary. What I wanted to say was, which of your officers was stupid enough to go? But what I said was, I'll look into it. And then the lieutenant started going on about how the officers weren't getting their code sevens, their dinner breaks. And inside, I'm screaming, my dispatchers haven't had a break in months. We're short staffed again. And what I said was, well, we'll do better. And so I'm stomping into the comp center. And as I approach the door, I can hear talking and laughing inside. And I thought, oh my goodness, they're in a good mood. I can't walk in like this. I can't take this and dump this on them. And so I took a deep breath outside the door and put on, I don't know, this great fake smile, and walked in and said, hi there. And nobody answered me. And so I thought, well, maybe they didn't hear me, although I didn't hear any phones ringing and I didn't hear any radio traffic on the radio. Maybe they didn't hear me. So I said, hi there. And the senior dispatcher who was on, Catherine, who's a good friend of mine, looked at me as if to say, you idiot, can't you tell? We're not speaking to you. So I took a deep breath and I stormed over to my desk and I sat down and did some paperwork until it was time for me to go, because I was covering 2 shifts at the time. So I worked a half a shift on day shift and half a shift on the evening shift. And I offered them breaks, and nobody needed a break. They answered questions that I asked with one word. And so I went home and slapped some fast food on the table and called my kids together for our family meal, and lit into my son. What are you doing leaving dirty socks on the floor? Are you trying to drive me crazy? He sat up, he looked at me, he said, Mom, I think you're already there. I picked up the girls at school, I set the table for dinner, I still have homework to do, and you're gonna yell at me about dirty socks on the floor? I think you're nuts.
Oh,
It did not go well from there.
oh,
And so I had a hard time getting to sleep that night. Go figure. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I went to the bathroom. I mean, it's what you do. And as I was leaving the bathroom, I made eye contact with myself in the mirror. And I stared into my green eyes. And it all came flooding back.
mm,
Because the day before, when I had walked into the comm center and not taken that moment to try to get myself centered, I walked in and, oh, I screamed, which of you idiots burned the popcorn? Don't you know how to work a microwave yet?
mm.
That was me. I did that. I treated him that way. So instead of wondering what's wrong with them, I started wondering what's wrong with me. Instead of wondering, who do they think they are? I'm wondering, who do I think I am?
Wow.
And that was the moment I decided I needed to get help, that there was something wrong. But it was a very stark realization. And I still remember how it felt to realize I was not compassionate. I was not kind. The word that best described me at that moment in my life rhymes with witch.
Mm, mm. It's so painful to have that waking up moment of seeing that we don't like who we're being.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what do you do?
That's
Then
the
what do you do?
question.
Yeah.
Then what do you do?
So then I go to a counselor and she tells me, there's this new thing in the literature that they're talking about compassion fatigue, and I think you might have it. I said, great. How are you going to fix it? And I know now counselors don't fix anything.
Mm.
And she said, we'll work together on this. But honestly, Edie, you need to take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I said, take care of myself. I'm working 60 to 70 hours a week. I've got 3 children at home. I've got laundry and lawn and groceries and scheduling and covering shifts. And
Oh,
I
Edie,
don't know how to do this.
I think so many people can relate to that. If you're listening and you feel that way, you're not alone. That sometimes there are so many things to take care of. The idea of doing self-care, the idea of taking time out for yourself just feels like, well, it's just another thing I'm supposed to do, but I don't have time for, and it's more overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know about people in general, but I felt like crap
Yeah.
that I couldn't figure this out because it seems pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it is simple.
Mm.
But simple and easy are not synonymous. It is not easy at all.
Oh, yes. Oh, can I just say that again? Simple and easy are not synonymous.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what do you do? Can you help us?
absolutely. That's my jam. That's my jam. So my work isn't new. I've just consolidated other people's work and shifted it and given it my own flavor.
Mm.
Um, come up with an acronym for how to start a healthy habit. And the acronym is REST, as in for the rest of your life, you're going to know this.
And that's what we need when we're
Right.
overwhelmed and overworked. Yes, perfect.
So the first habit that I wanted to start was meditation. Now, I'm an academic at heart, so I got a book on meditation. And it talked about sitting in the lotus position. I couldn't sit in the lotus position when I was 5 and still flexible. That's not that's not me. And having a mantra, and I didn't understand that, and having a all this craziness. And so I was whining to my sibling, to my sister Deb, and she said, "Edie, you don't have to do all that stuff. Just sit still and be quiet for 5 minutes. Just sit still and listen to yourself breathe for 5 minutes and see." So I wanted to prove her wrong because she's my older sister. So I figured out I would try it. So in the literature on habit formation, they talk about you've got to have a trigger. So rest is to remind yourself, because it turns out that our amygdala, this part of our brain that's at the base of the skull, wants us to stay the same. It's responsible for homeostasis, which means that you're probably not going to change more than 5 to 10%. That's why your weight stays the same. I mean, it might creep up, it creeps up gradually, but from one day to the next, it's not going to change by 5 or 10%, or more than 5 or 10%. Now, if you have a day where you wake up one morning and you're 20 pounds lighter than you were the day before, you're going to go see a doctor, right? Because you just don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So the homeostasis is what you're going against. So you got to remind yourself, because one of the ways that keeps you safe from too much change at one time is you forget. So you remind yourself.
Can you say that again? This is fascinating. So the amygdala helps us maintain homeostasis. And one of the
Mhm.
ways that it basically tries to help us is by making us forget to do things that are that are changing.
Yeah, they feel dangerous.
Huh.
So it makes it harder.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I never knew that. I never put those two pieces together, that forgetting to do things to get to a goal that we set, forgetting to do things that create change is part of an internal process, or a part of us that's trying to stay safe and trying to keep everything the same.
Mhm. Yeah. We're not bad. We're not stupid.
Mm,
We're human.
we're human. Yeah.
Yeah, of all things.
So what do you do with that? How do you work with the amygdala?
Okay, so remind yourself, but the four keys come together to help the amygdala. Okay, this all works together. So you remind yourself, and the second principle is you got to enjoy it.
Oh.
So you've got to find a way to enjoy it. So if it's something it's not inherently feeling good, then you've got to find a way to make it feel good, which might be um, taking a moment to celebrate that you did it. You got to somehow trigger that dopamine release.
It makes me think of how your sister helped you take something that sounded totally unenjoyable, the way that meditation was described in this book, and make it more enjoyable. That there are
Mhm,
little tweaks that we can make when there's something that you want to do as a practice, like say it's 5 minutes of being still and quiet and listening to yourself, to
mhm,
remind yourself and then make it enjoyable, even by tweaking and changing the way you come at it.
mhm. Yeah, and see, that's one of the cool things. It's your program. You
Huh.
can change it as many times as you want,
Can customize
and
it.
yeah, you can begin again. We always begin again. It's really kind of challenging to establish a new intentional habit. Somehow, it's not too challenging to establish crappy habits. You know,
Yeah.
because it's all about the dopamine. It's
Mm.
all about the feel good. So if we're stressed out and we check out by watching Netflix and watching 15 episodes of whatever show, watch all the years of Grey's Anatomy in one day. Um, that that dopamine, that feel good is right there. So
Mm.
so there's two of them, but there's two more.
Tell us.
So you've got to remind yourself, you've got to enjoy it. And the S is you got to keep it small and doable. So one of the ways, because at 5 to 10% change thing, you don't want to make a huge change. You might want to be a bodybuilder who lifts 600 pounds at a time. Is that possible? I guess it is. Um, you might want to be a bodybuilder, but that's not where you're going to start.
Mm.
You're going to start with keeping it so small and doable. If you're not exercising at all, make it where what you're going to keep track of is that you put your shoes on that day and you do that every day. Keep it very small, very doable, so that it's a no-brainer, and you're also not freaking out the amygdala. And then I hinted at the T, and that's tracking it, because
Ah.
tracking what we pay attention to grows. I mean, that's a principle that gets taught in many different ways. So what you track, what you pay attention to grows. Now, the cool thing, one of the things that I struggled with was, let's see, I was overweight, disorganized. My finances were a mess. Oh, there were like 5 different things I wanted to change. So the overweight, I wanted to lose weight and exercise. Um, so that's a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, to think about trying to do all those things at one
Right,
time would be
right,
immediately overwhelming. At least it would be
right.
for me.
I was gung ho. And so one day I went and I joined Weight Watchers and the gym the same day.
Oh, wow.
Never darkened either of their doors. But, and so one of the things I discovered is that I don't have to spend money on equipment. or programs or anything to get started with what I want to do.
Mm.
So learning to sit still and be quiet was huge for me, because it turns out that nature always responds to nurture. And because we're whole beings, it doesn't matter where we start. It matters that we start.
Oh, that's so powerful. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters that you start.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How relieving that it's not about figuring out the perfect program or the perfect process. It's about starting and using this beautiful model that you've created to remind yourself, see if I can remember, to remind yourself to do it, to make it enjoyable, to keep it small,
Mhm.
and to track it. Pay
Mhm.
attention.
Yeah. When you track it, you're telling your amygdala that it's important. And when you keep it small and doable, you're establishing that you do this. The two go together. This is small and doable, and I track it every day, and it changes my identity. I become someone who is intentional about doing this.
And I see how you're working with the amygdala because now these small incremental changes or this new practice every day becomes part of the homeostasis. It becomes part of this is what we do. And so the amygdala ideally feels calmer about the whole situation in that regard as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and so then it works. So because of that process that I started years ago, the 5 minutes a day of silence, and that was my first intentional change. It gave me the margin to be able to think in my life. And so I was able to make other changes. I have an autoimmune condition that is related to what I eat. And so I was able, because I had that margin, because I was doing that work, I was able to do the work of figuring out what it is that I'm sensitive to. And so I've kept an autoimmune condition in remission for 5 years now.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And by margin, it sounds like that creation of space, like there's room to breathe around something
Mhm.
else. There's room to see or look at
Yeah.
other things in your life.
And that's not all.
Oh,
I've dropped 85 pounds and kept it off at 2 years now. August, I think 20th of 2020. Yeah, 2020 was when I was weighed my goal weight the first time.
and it sounds like ultimately what that means for you is feeling better in your body. Maybe it's not even so much about number of pounds, but just a feeling of feeling good in your body that feels different.
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
accurate?
Oh, yeah. I feel
Yeah.
great. I turned 70 in July,
Amazing.
and I feel better than I think I did when I was 8 years old. I feel great.
Wow.
I
So
have
you're
so much energy. Yeah.
s- so wow. So you're a living example of how these practices are transformational. That you have so much energy, you feel great, you're 70 years old and you're so full of life.
Mhm. And so full of passion. I'm so excited to be able to bring this work to the world, to help other people recognize that life is really fun to live when we take care of ourselves. And, I post frequently on social media that self-care is not selfish. It is the kindest, most generous thing you can do for the people who care about you.
Mm,
And I mean it. If you
mm,
think about the people who are in your life that you care about who are not taking care of themselves, wouldn't your life be easier if they just would?
mm. Oh, wow. What a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same is true for us, that when
Yeah.
we're not taking care of ourselves, there are probably people in our lives who just wish we would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't want to be stuck having to take us to the doctor or worrying about
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
You know, it, it's just kindness.
So, Edie, what would you say to somebody who's an entrepreneur or a business owner or a high level professional who has so much going on in their life. Circling back to what we were talking about in the beginning, that feeling of I have so much to do. I have to run my business. I need to take care of the kids. I need to make the meals. I need to clean the house. I need to do this and do that and do that. And now I'm supposed to think about my own self care.
Mhm.
That feels so overwhelming. What would you say to them?
I would say love yourself enough to take 5 minutes a day for yourself. If you don't already have another practice that you're wanting to do, that you have already planned to do. Like I had one client who had bought a gratitude journal. What was it, 5 years ago? 3 years ago. 3 years ago. She had bought a gratitude journal 3 years before we met. And that was what she wanted to do. She wanted to establish a gratitude practice. Of course, I'm going to support that. And the way I support it is you let me know that you did it. I'm going to celebrate with you
Mm.
because that feel good, that celebration is huge. But give yourself 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes. And make a commitment to yourself that you're not going to beat yourself up when you forget. Paying attention is what matters. We track that we pay attention. So paying attention is just saying yes or no. So one of the strategies that I've used in the past has been having an accountability partner where we send each other um, an emoji
Huh.
to say yes or no. I mean, how long does it take to send an emoji? Just a few seconds. And so we selected the emoji that meant yes and the emoji that meant no. My emoji that meant yes was a thumbs up. My emoji that meant no is the little poop symbol.
Oh, okay, way to make it fun still.
Yes.
Yes.
And so you send that and you get back. We use GIFs, I don't know, for celebration. So you send back a high five, send back fireworks, send back, what makes the other person feel good. But you get that whether you did it or not, because you're paying attention and you're keeping track. And so paying attention to your own well-being is part of that self-awareness and is part of the what you need to be healthy and strong.
I love this. So the idea is that paying attention, whether you remember to do it or not, is that in and of itself is deserving of celebration. And so
Absolutely.
I love imagining that you send a poop emoji to your friend and you get fireworks in return. It's so fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Oh, this is wonderful. What really stands out to me about this method that you've designed is that one, it's so customizable that it's built right in, as you said, that it needs to be enjoyable for you. So
Mhm.
that means if there is something you've thought about doing, like a gratitude journal, that whatever you gravitate toward, you take that,
Mhm.
that you make it 5 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever you can manage to do without it feeling stressful. And
Mhm.
that it is manageable. Though in the process is that it's small. It's these small, simple steps that you're just paying attention to that can create huge change.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. You got it. So, the Grand Canyon,
Uh-huh.
how it was formed.
Well, ice and water.
Drops, drops of water, drops of water. A drop of water picked up a grain of sand and took it out to the ocean, one at a time.
Huh. That's a
Small
powerful
things make a
image.
big difference. Big difference.
Small things make a big difference. Yeah. Yes, they do.
You're worth it. Your life is worth your effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is incredible. So I want to ask you one more quick question before we come to our closing questions, which is if somebody doesn't know what to do, if they think, okay, I love this rest model, I want to start implementing this, I want to take 5 minutes of a day for myself, but I don't even know what to do. Is there a first practice that you would recommend? Would it be sitting quietly for 5 minutes or would it be something else?
Absolutely. Sitting quietly for 5 minutes because it helps your mind, it helps your body, it helps your spirit. It
Mm.
helps every aspect of your life. And it's so doable. It doesn't matter your physical capacity, it doesn't matter your circumstance. I mean, you might not have a roof, but you can sit still and be quiet for 5 minutes and listen to yourself breathe. Just focus on being. So I have developed a self-care blueprint. I call it the 911 self-care blueprint because really for a lot of us, this is an emergency.
Mhm.
Um, and I also serve 911. And you can get that through my website, www.shapegoodhabits.com. Because we
Shape.
want to have
Yeah. Yes.
shapegoodhabits.com. So we want our lives to be in shape. So we're going to shape good habits because our lives are really centered on our habits. 40 to 70% of what we do every day is habitual.
So definitely go to Edie's website, shapegoodhabits.com, and download her 911 guide because this is profound that you can have a blueprint to create this small change in your life that can change everything, but
Hmm.
doesn't feel overwhelming.
Hmm. Yeah. You'll notice a difference within a couple weeks. You might notice it immediately,
Mm.
but over the long run, oh my goodness, it changes everything. It changes everything.
I do
So,
want to ask you too. You co-authored a book, I believe,
yes.
Victim to Victory. Would you just tell us briefly about that? Because that would be wonderful to find that book and read it as well.
Yes. So it's coming out October 1st. So Victim to Victory is the stories of people who are movers and shakers in this world. And it was brought together by a podcaster out of Australia whose name is Tracy Cook. And her podcast is Victim to Victory. And she selected people that she's interviewed over the years and um, invited them to be co-authors. And so my story is in there. I promise you, it was such a challenging thing because each of the authors has only a 1,200 word chapter.
Wow.
So tell this old lady, and you know me, Carissa, I can talk forever. To try to tell my story in 1,200 words or fewer was challenging. But I'm so excited about this book, and the other people who are involved are such phenomenal people. And it's a way to give hope
Mm.
that out of the ashes we rise.
Mm.
You know, when I was chaplain at a children's home, and I used to tell the kids the very, very best fertilizer is manure. And some of us been in the manure in our lives. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
But things grow from it. And so it's really a book about hope. And it's a fundraiser for backpacks for children in foster care in Perth, Australia. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, how wonderful. What a great read. I will definitely be on the lookout for that in October.
And so get on my mailing list. So if when you get your 911 self-care blueprint, you'll be on my mailing list and I'll have the opportunity to give you a free Kindle book. But I would ask that you write a review.
Oh,
There's a
yes.
limited time, I think it's 24 hours that I'll be able to offer that free. And so I'm very
So
excited.
definitely get on Edie's mailing list. You'll get to download your 911 blueprint. And one more question, Edie, if you don't mind, if there was just one thing that someone listening took home with them from this interview, what would you want them to remember?
Your life is worth your effort. It's simple, not easy, but
Mm.
your life, it's you. You got this.
Hmm. Yes. And your life is worth your effort. Yeah. Oh, Edie, thank you so much. What a joy it's been to have you on the show and to learn about this method that is a gift to me and I think to everyone listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Carissa. I love what you do, and I love how you serve your audience. Thank you so much.